guys, we are back at Manifest the Future of Supply Chain, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation because Nick and I have talked a couple of times, but I think the last time we talked was at Manifest last year. We might have had one conversation between, but I have a lot of questions to ask you, so I'm excited to get into our conversation today. But before I do that, for anyone who doesn't already know you, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. My name is Nick Schrock, founder, CEO of Valoroo. We do nearshoring, offshoring specific to supply chain companies.
Awesome. So nearshoring, offshoring, that was like a primary topic of conversation at TIA, at some other big industry conferences over the last couple of years. And so we've talked a lot about that, just the benefits of nearshoring, offshoring, what countries are strategic job markets, different things like that. But today, I feel like there's a new buzzword that's kind of taking over, and I have a lot of questions about its impact on nearshore staffing. So I want to get into it a little bit. I want to talk about AI, generative AI, and all of the developments that we've seen. There have been a lot of headlines that have caught my attention lately in transportation and logistics space for a lot of investment that's being put in. A lot of funding rounds are closing right now on AI-focused companies that are providing solutions for brokerages and carriers, forwarders, a lot of your customer base that are supposed to be designed to optimize workflows and reduce manual work tasks, I guess. So let's talk all about it. I would love to hear your thoughts on AI, the direction it's heading in the logistics space, and what you guys are doing in that space as well.
Yeah, AI is, it's exciting. Anyone that's played with the tools is kind of in awe for what it can do and what we think it could do.
Yeah.
I do think every startup and every software company has just rebranded to AI, so it's really muddled the landscape. It's like, well, we're AI. It's like, well, what's actually generative AI, and like, how is it actually going to change the impact? And I think that's a real question that people aren't addressing, I think, in the right way. So it's not what we've seen. So we get inside picture into a lot of different brokerages, big ones, small ones, and people are utilizing this software, but I don't think it's having the impact that startups are saying it's having right now. I think it will. I think that's down the road. I just don't think that's happening today. I don't think there's 30%, 40% headcount reduction that's driving record profits in brokerage. I think everyone in brokerage knows, like, this is a very tough time to be in the transportation space. And for that to simultaneously be going on, it's like, we've got the best technology in the world that's revolutionizing the automation. Those two things don't really add up in my head.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. What are can you give me any use cases that you've seen of like ways that AI has been implemented, but maybe it's, in a way that doesn't have a significant effect on headcount? Like, have you seen any successful tools or use cases of AI?
Absolutely, and I almost don't want to use the word AI because it's so convoluted. I think of more of just automation. It's like we were talking a little bit earlier, and 10 years ago, almost exclusively what we did was track and trace. We were calling drivers going, hey Mark, where are you? It's like, oh, I'm 25 miles out of Cincinnati. We type that into the TMS. That's non-existent anymore. That has all been automated away with a multitude of different tools. And so I think that's a great example how that reduces workload. Now, we still have massive track and trace teams. They're just doing different things. They're convincing drivers to download those apps and keep them on there. They're building loads. They're kind of expanding their horizon because what we do is we really don't want to hire just the cheapest people we can find. I want someone who has average of 10 years of experience in supply chain, so that way they can learn, they know how to operate and do a multitude of different things and operate these softwares as they grow.
So another thing that you said is when you talked about, like, we haven't seen AI or automation tools necessarily reduce headcount. I think that's probably true. I also would imagine that if in the companies that I know that are using AI and where things are getting implemented, I don't think I have seen or even heard of one single example of, hey, we have a new AI tool, now we're going to lay off 10 people.
Right.
So I think what we're doing, if anything, is trying to give time back from tedious tasks to do more important tasks that just aren't being really done to their full potential or, if at all. And so I don't think anybody right now is like actively looking to to reduce their headcount. Would you say that you guys have also seen that?
I think people want to reduce their headcount because labor is usually the number one cost within brokerages and asset-based companies. However, I think everyone's still overwhelmed with the amount of work they have to do in the day.
Sure.
So, for example, TriumphPay released some new features that I think are AI driven.
Okay.
And it reduced probably 40% of what our accounting teams were doing. It's like, hey, we used to just be doing data entry and moving information from one to the other. It's like now that's gone. That frees us up to now do collections. That frees us up to do these other things that weren't getting done before. So this technology is enabling us. And I'm sure there will be, with the automation and as AI gets better, jobs will be lost. Again, it's just the scale that we keep hearing from technology podcast, AI companies, of the massive wave that's coming. I just think it might be further out than we hope, or that we think, and that we really think it's going to drive these production. So.
Yeah, and I also think that maybe like as AI is improving, eventually what goes down comes up, and we should see a reversal at some point, or at least some growth in the freight markets. And I don't think anyone's like, knowing where we sit, I don't think any company's actually like has an appetite right now for like scaling down their workforce, hoping that they're going to be scaling up their volumes in the coming couple of years, or growing.
Yeah, that's
and when I say scaling down, I don't mean I also want to include the nearshore and offshore staffing in that. I think people are looking at those team members as like a part of their team, and I don't think because they introduce AI they want to be like stopping those services.
Yeah, I might disagree with you a little
Good.
bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I might, just because I think the industry's been starved of profits for years now. So if there was something where I could go, hey, if you fire these 10 people, you'll lose no execution, and that'll all be in the bottom line. Sure, I agree with you. There are some brokerages that treat their employees like families, but in the end of the day, it's a business. People want to make money, so they will do it. I think there's just a ton of work to do in a brokerage. So if they can free it up, it's like, well, do I let go of these 10 people? It's like, or do I solve these other 10 fires I have? Can I just move my talent around? And so that's what we've been seeing our customers doing, and that's what I've seen just talking to people in the industry. It's like, yeah, they might reduce their headcount a little bit, but tell you, we are a staffing company. We doubled last year. We doubled the year before that. We are on pace to double again this year. And there's automation's not going down, it's going up. So those, again, the math isn't really adding up. Why is a BPO doubling?
The math isn't mathing.
Right, math isn't mathing. Why are we doubling if there's so much automation that's just all this is becoming human proof? So
let's talk about the humans. Let's talk about the people that are doing the work, right? Whether it's tech-enabled or some of these processes that we unfortunately still have probably too manual processes for. Tell me a little bit about just like staffing right now, or hiring, and the job market in brokerage, and what companies are coming up against, and what do you hear? I would also love to know, like, what do you guys hear from these companies when they're coming to Valoroo, when they're engaging you in a conversation? What is making them look into your staffing solutions?
Yeah, and they come to us, it's mostly referrals or on an adjusted need that they have, and they're trying to solve it, but I'd say most people are pretty skeptical, because most outsourcing companies are not very good. We've all had customer service calls with tough people and going through cable or your cell phone provider. And we've just taken a different approach. We don't really have data entry conversations anymore. Like we said, this has been automated away. It's what our main goal and what we've been striving for the last year. It's like, hey, how do we upskill people? How do we hire managers and director level roles? People that are capable of not only just following an SOP, standard operating procedure, down it, just executing on this, but it's like, hey, how do I troubleshoot this? How do I solve problems for the customer's customer and actually drive value throughout the whole org? So I'd say those are the main conversations we're having. It's what you should expect out of your nearshore outsourcing provider is different than it was 5 years ago. You should expecting like US director level production, not entry level college kids. So I'd say that's the biggest change we've seen over the past couple of years.
I also love that, you said in the last 5 years, and 5 years ago we went through a global pandemic, and people got really comfortable with still creating culture and teams virtually. So I have to imagine that that's also helped open up a more global workforce as opposed to like we are confined to a specific metro in-office presence.
Right.
And so I think as we are already comfortable collaborating, with our peers, with our C-suites, with our directors and everything here virtually in many cases, that's probably also opening up new opportunities too for collaboration. Do you think that that's played a role in that?
I would agree. When everyone was forced to work remotely, it kind of, what is it called? Take the monkey out. It took the stigma away. We're like, wait, this isn't the end of the world. We can still be productive. So then naturally people are like, well, I can hire people outside of Chicago, outside of Iowa, on this. And it's like, well, how far can I go? Could I go to Missouri, or could I go all the way to the Philippines? Could I go to Mexico?
Yeah.
And so, 100% the tolerance for working with people in different countries. And then once they try it, like I try to convince people, it's like, start small, hire one person, hire two. Let us prove to you that this is going to be a great experience, not a really heavy lift on your end. And once they start working with people and they're driving tons of value in the work ethic they see, it becomes really easy. Yeah.
I want to circle back to not just AI this time, but technology. I thought of a question here. As companies are, I think brokers and they're constantly looking right now at what's out there and what's available. It's almost like a full-time job to have on payroll for someone to be looking at all the tools and all the options, and are we doing the best thing for our operations, for our customers? Are we keeping up, right? Mm-hmm. And so as they're looking at this, they want to be able to make decisions. They want to be able to implement things. They probably want to be able to move fairly quickly because that seems to be a necessity in brokerage. So how do you guys support or make sure that you're able to keep up with all the changes if they're wanting to try new technology this week or start something or add a new integration and processes are changing all of the time? What does that look like across your organization? Yeah,
it's actually pretty fun. It really is, because you get to hundreds of brokerage and asset-based companies. You get to see in their background, it's like what's working for them. And I don't want to do something that can be automated. I don't want our people doing that. So if one of our customers, and of course we're never going to share anything proprietary, but it's like, hey, they don't use DAT, it's like they're manually tracking all this stuff. It's like, hey, here's a load board you guys could use and do. That's a very generic answer, but
you're kind of able to consult almost. 100%. On like, here's what's working. Why don't we adopt
And it
this?
strengthens our relationship with our customers. It's like, hey, we've seen this work other places. We introduced them to different technology stacks, and we were talking about this beforehand. It's like, some things that I think should be automated that haven't existed yet, it's like we're trying to develop in-house that we can give to our people. It's like we're never going to be an AI company just because, like I said, everyone's becoming an AI company, but that doesn't mean we can't provide AI/automation services to our clients and transition with the industry as we go through.
Yeah. And also, I don't care who you are, where you're from, what you do. Nobody wants to do things that are like mind-numbingly boring.
100%.
Like, we don't, if it can be automated, you said that it should. I have to imagine you guys are like pushing just as hard for that, because your people don't want to do that any more than someone else wants to do that, right? Like, no matter your location or what country you're in. So I think that's been, to me, the concept of like removing tedious work from one country to another, it's like a really bad Band-Aid on a pretty bad problem, right? Yeah. Like, we're just saying, hey, let's shove this somewhere else where we don't have to think about it as much, but we didn't fix anything. We didn't actually like solve the problem. We just made the problem a little bit more cost effective to handle, right?
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think it's kind of a natural progression, right? It's like, hey, people in the US don't want to do this anymore. It's like, well, people in the Philippines are excited to do it because they're working for a US company and there's this different dynamic. It's like, well, eventually, as we are upskilling that population, they're not going to want to do it either. They want to do rewarding work that's actually driving, I think all of us, we want to drive value to the company we're working for. It's like, whether that's talking to a customer, it's like, that's great. But like you said, if you're just punching numbers from an email into a TMS, everybody's going, it's like, why can't these things talk to each other where I could just hit upload, right? Or even not even have to click anything. I agree 100%. Yeah.
So I'm curious to know what aspects of business people are looking to nearshore, offshore staffing for. What's the best term? Is it nearshore? Is it offshore?
So it's really nearshore
this
was
is an
a
important
way.
question.
Yeah, I love this. This is great. This is great.
I'm like, I've heard all of these and I don't know what to say anymore.
So outsourcing had a really bad stigma, right? Because we were all outsourcing to India and the Philippines and really low labor. So when companies started building processes in Colombia, Mexico, Guatemala, they rebranded to nearshoring. So nearshoring is Central South America. Outsourcing is Philippines, India, things like that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
They mean the same thing, though.
Okay.
They mean the same thing.
So my question would then be, what roles are they looking to, like, do you see most commonly they come and say, hey, these are the roles that we're looking to expand and grow our nearshore, offshore teams?
Yeah, and I think these roles have changed in what they originally meant.
Okay.
Because we still hire a lot of track and trace people, even though they're not track and tracing anymore, they're more logistics operations. So they might be building loads, they might be communicating with carriers, they might be tracking down PODs that they didn't upload through the app. We do a lot of carrier sales, we do a lot of dispatch, account management facing roles, things like that. A ton of accounting. We say accounting's pretty general, but that's collections, that's invoice audit, that's claims, that's kind of anything on the post POD.
Okay.
So mainly logistics operations, that's carrier sales, track and trace, and accounting.
Where have you seen the most success in like manager level or even director level hires in that sense? What roles?
It varies, like whether it's a credit analyst manager, whether it's someone that's more like a McLeod super user, something like that. The manager level roles we hire for tend to be more specific. It's not of course we have carrier sales managers, but when someone's asking us to hire a manager, it's like, hey, I've got this open role, you've crushed it at all of these things, it's like, take a shot at that, right?
Yeah.
This is what I want. And sure, we have to pay more, it costs more costs the client more, but you're still talking a third the cost of it, what it would be to hire a US person, and the level of experience is honestly unrivaled. It's very, very good.
Yeah. Well, I've learned things like I always do when I talk to you today, so I appreciate that. But for anyone who has more questions, if you have questions about this and we didn't answer your question specifically, please message myself or Nick on LinkedIn. You guys can find Nick on LinkedIn. He's very present there, as well as the Valoroo company page. Be sure to check out their website and learn more about what they're doing. We'll have the website linked in the comment section of our podcast post, so you guys can go look at that. And Nick, thank you so much for being here today. I enjoyed
thanks for having me. Great conversation.